Okay, good morning everybody. How are you all feeling? Good? Yeah? Good day? Nice weather, spring is coming. Had a good week, it's Friday, almost the weekend. We had a pretty rough week actually, very busy, and we almost lost one of our biggest clients this week. It's a long story, but to cut it short, we had to work really hard a couple of days and most of one night to get it back, but we managed. So in the end, also for us, it was a good week. I'm a big wreck because of that, but everybody needs it. Kubert and Herman, it's an agency I founded with Arthur Herman back in 1998, at the end of the last century. It sounds really long ago. And that's us, Arthur and Jeroen. We're now a team of 7 people, 6, 7 people, depends a little bit. And when we started, we actually couldn't think of a better name than Kubert and Herman, so that's why we chose Kubert and Herman. Alphabetically, it would have been more logic to call it Herman and Kubert, but since Arthur's surname is also a first name, it would have been very confusing that people thought it was Herman Kubert. So that's why we call it Kubert and Herman. And we're a small creative team, as we call it. We are located very close here at the Kromme Nieuwegracht, which is, I think, 5 minutes walk from here. And well, we say we design stories, and what we think, what means that we're a graphic design studio, but we have a particular strong editorial involvement, which I will get into later also. And also we have a small fixed team, a core team, but we also have a very large network of other people we collaborate with. And which sometimes in a project our team can be much bigger. And what kind of things do we make? What kind of things do we design? We come from a print history. We studied in the 90s when the internet was still very, very 1.0. And we still do a lot of designing for print work, like books. This is a book which was recently published by Aperture in New York about Chinese phone books. This is another book we did last year for Martin Parr, photographer. It was part of his, there's a catalog for a show in the museum in Hanover. The book is about British culture in Germany. We also do other things, campaigns. This is a bit of an oldie. This is back in 2005 for the Spring Dance Festival, which is now merged with Festival van der Werf. And this was a one-off from a series of artificial flowers we designed for the campaign. Spring. This was a contemporary dance festival. This is another campaign we've done for an art show in the Botanical Gardens, also in Utrecht, with inflatable versions of Paul McCartney's work. And we did a campaign for that. We also do visual identities. This is something we've done for the Dutch Foundation for Literature, Nederlands Letterfonds. And this is another one. This is for the Photo Book Museum, which is an initiative in Cologne, Germany, where they strive to build the first museum worldwide just about photo books, which is a very ambitious project. And this is part of a temporary space they occupied in Cologne last summer. We did the identity for that. And web-based project, this is something I will get into later a little bit more, but this is a project about, it's actually about how Rwanda copes with the legacy of the atrocities which took place 20 years ago, with the genocide which took place. Love Radio. Another big project where there's also a big web Part of is the Sochi project, which is a documentary project about Sochi, Russia. Exhibitions is a growing part of our practice. This is a show we've done, we've designed for the Photo Museum in Antwerp about Weegee, the renowned American news photographer, and his link to tabloid newspapers. And this is another show we've done last summer in the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, and which is it was about new collaborations between photographers, image makers, and designers, which was called On the Move, which it closed last January. So just to give you an overview. And then you ask yourself, of course, what the hell does this have to do with humility? And yeah, actually, to be honest, I'm just showing off a little bit now. These are stuff we've done. We've been working for 20 years. It's quite a while. And I'm quite proud of everything that I can show you. And I think during this time, and when you build up more experience to work as a designer, of course you feel that you understand certain processes better, and you get more grasp on how projects develop and how projects you should kind of manage projects, how you can kind of see through some difficulties in projects, stuff like that. But I think, so in a sense, you gain control, you could say, in a way, because you understand more what you're actually doing. But what I would like to talk with you now about is more that with gaining control, you sometimes also lose some important things. I think in our development as a studio, there were also some moments where when I look back at these moments, I think we actually gained insight, or we made an important step to becoming ourselves by losing ourselves in a way. So I would like to go through a kind of short mental experiment, which I call losing yourself in a positive way. And the first step is don't design the work. I put a quote on my Facebook prior to this to this event where I said, we don't want people to look at design, we want people to step into the story. So design, it shouldn't be about the design. The design can of course, I mean, design is about service, but when design implies that you stay at the service, or that it's just about that, or it's only operating in this layer, then I think it fails. I want to show you. Well, it's quite a small project we've done with two young photographers. They're called Wassink Lundgren. They're from the Netherlands. Thijs Groot-Wassink, Ruben Lundgren. And they came to us with a project they've done in China, which actually happened by chance. They had a large format camera, and they wanted to take pictures of the cities in China. And then they placed a plastic bottle in the picture, just to focus the camera. But then when they put the bottle there was somebody who picked it because they needed for the return money for the Staatsgeld. And because of that, they kind of came up with this project which they call Empty Bottles, which seems like a pretty lightweight, kind of playful. It's like the wallet with a thread, and you pull it. But at the same time, it also tells a small but significant story about contemporary China. This was back in 2006, when China was even more booming than now, double-digit growth. But still a large percentage of the population, not only social outcasts, but also like the middle class, if you could call it, needed the money. They came to us with this project. And of course, it was a very interesting project. It was very, your fingers start itching to do something with it. And I think that the quality But what we, in the end, we've done with it is actually that we've done almost nothing. So I think sometimes it's really about waiting. It's about not stepping into like the process, but actually wait until you can see what the project kind of does itself. Maybe it sounds a bit abstract because you say, well, there's like a pile of images. It's not going to become a book all from itself, is it? So but on an abstract level, it's really about a feeling. Maybe some of you kind of recognize it, that sometimes when you get into a certain mode, it's almost as if the project designs itself, because there's so much in the story already. It's just waiting to pop out, and it's actually a call to be reluctant. You can't always be reluctant, but in this case, sometimes it's really good. It's really good to just do nothing, just wait and see what happens, or question it, look from the other side. What's it like when you look from here? What is the nature of it? And on that waiting and waiting, maybe waiting until it hurts, thinking about it, and then you start, because of course you need to do something in the end. What I like about it, it can really help, because here in the end, you could say, well, you have a certain story, and then you design something which becomes a book about this particular work, or it's about something. But I think it's much more interesting if this object actually becomes the work itself. So in a way, there is the border between where the design starts and the content ends, or the other way around, is actually quite blurry. So it's really, and the funny thing is, with this book, it was also the work which was displayed. It was also a money thing, to be honest, because they didn't have any money to make prints. But it was also because the book itself kind of, how do you say, we actually emerged into the project itself. The second thing I'd like to share with you is another way to not work on the things you've kind of how do you say, your rationality, or the things you developed in knowledge, and it's sometimes you have to forget about formats and also forget about planning, which is very dangerous, and just start somewhere, which is really important. This is a project about these two guys. This is Rob Boordstra, he's from Utrecht. He's a co-founder of Fotodoc, which is upstairs here. And Arnold van Brugge, he's a journalist. And it's now 6.5, 7 years ago, they came to our office. And they started a project about the region surrounding Sochi, which at that point, it was in 2008, I think, had just been granted to the Olympic Games. At that point, our relationship with Putin was very different than nowadays. It was really, and they wanted to tell like an alternative story about the region surrounding Sochi, to give like an alternative view on everything happening, as a balance with the whole PR and, well, propaganda, to call it, which was then about to start. And they came to us. And the funny thing is that they didn't really know what was going to happen with the project. They had a lot of ambition. Look at them. They took this picture, by the way. They were arrested in Russia, and this is in the police station. When the police officers left, they took this selfie, which they put on Facebook. It said something about them. Nowadays they can't visit Russia. Their visa was denied, which was part of this big row in the Nederland-Rusland war. But anyway, back to the project. They wanted to work with a design agency or a designer for this project, and but they couldn't say anything about how it would develop, and so we just started somewhere. And the funny thing is that Rob recalled, because he was talking to some other designers too, and he thought at that point, although we're not a really big agency, we're actually quite a small agency, but he thought that we were at that point the most established party they were talking with. But still, he was very surprised that we said, yes, we're doing it. Although it can't offer us anything, we're doing it. But the only thing we want is we want to do everything. And then the next day, I looked at Arthur and I said, oh my God, what did we do? You know, it's really about, because you actually don't know what you're stepping into. And I think, you just have to speed up the slides a little bit, that I think maybe like a very almost intuitive kind of thing you want to do then is kind of structure it. Oh, it's like 5 years, what we're going to do, when are we going to publish what, how does it look like, do we need a format for it, how are we going to calculate printing costs, all these kinds of things. And actually here, it's not something that we kind of deliberately chose to not do that, because it is really difficult, but it happened because the project just evolved in that way. And when I look back at it, it was one of the biggest strengths actually in the project, that it evolved in this very organic way. You're looking at some campaign stuff, because we, apart from it was actually branding a journalistic story, or branding journalistic stories, which is it's pretty new to do that. You know, it's not. They also want to do this because like traditional media nowadays are not capable, or well, they don't support these kind of long journalistic stories anymore. Another thing we needed to do was to kind of build up the whole system of funding, because we had some funding from the government to start, but it wasn't enough for a project of this scale. So it was actually one of the projects which it was one of the first projects which used crowdfunding before Kickstarter. Well, Kickstarter was happening abroad, but in the Netherlands there wasn't a real structure for crowdfunding at that point. So we also built up stuff for that. And also, you know, immediately when we kind of brought things out, a lot of people, not only in the Netherlands but internationally, started to react. This is a project we did in Rome. So step by step, a lot of things happened. And also we developed all kinds of means which told the story. We said, well, actually all material should tell these stories about these people. And we also sold them to kind of gain money. So there's also like we have this web shop, which is still in the air. And the other thing is we publish a lot of books. And this is also something where in the beginning we didn't really know what would come out of it. Newspapers. And there's some connection. Well, this is really particularly bad on the Beamer. You can see the picture. I'm talking really kind of in a lightweight way about it, but there are some parts which are very, very. This, for instance, is a book about a woman. They met in the north of North Caucasus, who has lost her husband. Her husband disappeared, and so this is also the reason why their visas were denied, because it's a very critical book about how Russia, but also other local parties are actually in this region, which is also, I think, by kind of not completely kind of structuring these things already, we could also much more freely, interact with some parts. You know, this, for instance, this whole book is printed on newsprint, which was felt like a really relevant kind of material. But in the end, I think what did we learn from this is that of course I'm exaggerating. With a project like this, some part of them you really need to kind of clearly think about it and plan them and stuff like that. But it's more like that by letting it go, by letting the project evolve, and it's actually something we couldn't control. It was really we could play a role in it, but it was just not clear. It could also have happened that like after 2 years it would have collapsed because just nobody would buy the books and stuff like that. But I think. We've learned a great deal just by trying not to kind of control it too much. This is also there's also a range of exhibitions, something which kind of came up later in the process, which is not traveling around the world. This is in New York, Aperture Foundation. Well, the last thing. It's more about how to work in teams, because a lot of the projects we're doing, the larger projects, it's teamwork, obviously. Right? So this is a shot of a meeting we had with the team involved in Love Radio, which is it's officially it's called a transmedia web documentary, but it's a project about I just mentioned already, but it was a project about how Rwandese people cope with like the legacy of the massacres which took place 21 years ago now. It was 20 years ago last year. And it's basically, it's a documentary, but on the web, which it's a very kind of multi-layered story. And it's about a radio station, which is now broadcasting in Rwanda on the exact same frequency which was used prior to the genocide by the government to, how do you say it, as propaganda. They call it, I always mix up Hutu and Tutsi, I'm sorry, but they call the other party cockroaches, and the radio kind of, how do you say, motivated people to go outside and kill the cockroaches, which is, there are some sound bites of that, which is really gruesome. But on this exact same frequency, nowadays, there's a radio soap, which is called Musekaweya, and which is about a fictive Hutu and a fictive Tutsi village, which need to kind of live together with all kinds of things, like a Romeo and Juliet kind of love affair and stuff like that. And it's very popular in Rwanda. So it's a radio soap because television is very difficult, but everybody has a radio, and it has a weekly kind of episodes. And so that's a project. And we were involved in the project because I just said, don't stop playing your role. Firstly, it's about when are you getting involved in the project. And with this project, we were already involved before it actually, there were some images already, but it wasn't at that point funded. So it's something which I think in practice happens more and more. There's like a classical role that somebody has a project and they say, well, we've so now we need to design it. Now we go to a design agency. This is more about kind of how strategically are we together? Are we kind of trying to make this project possible? So it's about that. But I think also it's about, there's a team brought together where we are designers. There's an interaction designer. You have the people who make the images, who write the text. There was a HTML5 developers for the desktop version. There's also a mobile version, which is different. And everybody, of course, is selected because of their background. It's like it's a real kind of team. But and then, of course, we are the designers, so we need to think about the design, and we need to kind of that's our background and our specialism. But at the same time, I think, which is really interesting, that at a certain point you also let go of this role, that it's really about, I always find when you have like meetings in these kind of settings, that of course everybody kind of says, well, we've done this and we've done that, and how does this connect? And but there is a certain point where when it really gets interesting, where everybody is trying, things are going more fluidly, and it's also about how are you, what's your own position in that? How are you kind of giving other people the possibility to enter your domain, and how are you maybe entering somebody else's domain at some time? And that this kind of fluent way these teams work is something which I think is really, really important. You can't really control that from the start, but it's really, it's actually also here, it's really about, trying to not to work from what you know, but also to be really open about what could be, or maybe there is a territory you haven't been. This is the mobile version, which we made a tap story, which is like it's very simple. You just tap through images. And in the end, there was also an exhibition in foam in Amsterdam. And that's what I wanted to share with you.